Find out more about what's happening in Nasrec. We're going to take our four viewers there. President Jacob Zuma will be speaking. So if you are going to watch that, you can see that on 404. On SABC 3, a global risk consultancy has identified 5 risks to business in Southern Africa in 2018. Control Risk's senior partner for Southern Africa, George Nicholls, joins me in studio now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Why is the political situation in a country so important, especially when it comes to business?
That's a good question, but global organizations, when they invest in foreign destinations or new markets, are often looking for certainty to understand how a local government will interpret policy, regulation, law that will enable businesses to thrive. And political risk is one strategic tool that these companies have in understanding how their investment will grow in the future.
If we're going to take a look at SADC countries like perhaps South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, what would you say the risks are politically coming from those countries?
Well, it's an exciting time for Southern Africa and SADC in particular. We've had a range of new elections, so in Angola, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and currently here in South Africa with the ANC regional conference, we're seeing new leaders being elected. And the risks are there is to investors and other people is, will it change? Will things continue as they did before? Or is a new set of rules that are going to apply?
Mm-hmm. Often when we take a look at the continent, people speak a lot about the political risks, but I think something that doesn't come up as much is the risk of cyber attacks and cyber crime. Is that something to look out for in 2018?
I think it's something to be looking out for the last 5 years, and it will continue. As the Internet of Things are connecting processes, plants, banks, transactions, power stations, they need to be defended against cyber attack. And this is a key area where cyber criminals often outstrip defenses, so that institutions and organizations remain vulnerable. So cyber is one of the bigger risks to consider for the next few years, certainly.
Do we have enough protection, I'm thinking specifically about South Africa, but all the other countries that you mentioned, to ward off big cyber attacks like the WannaCry attack that we saw this year?
I think it's going to be a difficult and contested space. Certainly there are a lot of organizations that have got well-developed defenses and policies and tools to protect them. But as you can see, criminals will exploit loopholes. And so only once the loophole's been discovered can it be plugged. So I think going forward, certainly in Africa has a gap to close between the rest of the world and cyber defenses, although there are some organizations that have got first-class practices. But generally the risk in cyber in Africa will remain.
Okay. You've spoken about Mozambique in this report, the Control Risks report for 2018. There's new risks in Mozambique. Can you talk us through those?
Well, our risk map report for 2018 from Control Risk has identified lots of opportunities within Mozambique, particularly the gas finds off the northern coast in the Cabo Delgado region. However, there's a new change in government. President Nyisi has come in, there's a new team, there's new policies. The gas finds are yet to start. So with all that optimism, there's going to be uncertainty. But the recent attacks in northern Mozambique, where we've seen armed insurgents attack police stations and attack some of the establishments being built, it means that the risks for security remain in northern Mozambique, risk of corruption remains in northern Mozambique, and policy and procedure and regulation is being ironed out, but a little bit of time needs to be done before it's finalized.
Mm. When we speak about new leadership, we've just seen in Zimbabwe there's temporary leadership before there's elections that are going to be held there. What kind of risk can you see coming out from a situation like that, where it seems as though there's been a pretty smooth transition and the military is no longer in power, and it seems as though Zimbabwe is on a new path, but what risks can you see for businesses that may be looking to go to Zimbabwe?
Well, certainly there's a lot of positive measures coming out of the ZANU-PF party and Mnangagwa as they take Zimbabwe forward. And that's led to optimism from investors, and investors are looking for certainty and growth. But the risk is, and it continues to be, is will Zimbabwe change? In other words, can they roll back the clock on all these poor practices and poor decisions and give optimism and opportunity to the future? That's the question, the risk that remains.
George Nicholls, thanks so much for your time on SABC News. It's time for a short break. I'll have more business news for you when we return. Do stay with us.